I had just finished folding the last load of laundry when my phone rang. It was my son Ethan. I smiled, wiped my hands on my old apron, and picked up. "Hey honey," I said. "I was just thinking about calling you. Wanted to check what time you want me there for Christmas Eve. I'll bring the sweet potato casserole like always. Isabel loves that one, right?" There was a pause, a long one. The kind that doesn't feel like a dropped call, it feels like a dropped heart. Hey mom," Ethan said. "Yeah, about that. Christmas this year is gonna be a little different." I felt my stomach tighten. "Different how?" He cleared his throat. "Well, we're keeping it small this year. Just Isabel's parents. Her brother and his wife are flying in from Denver. It's kind of a closed gathering." "Closed gathering?" I laughed, trying to brush it off. "Oh, come on, Ethan. I'm not an outsider. I'm your mother." There was another pause. Then he said it. "Yeah, I know. It's just, Isabel feels like things can get a little tense when you're here. And her mom is, kind of sensitive." "Tense?" I asked, my voice cracking without my permission. "What exactly does that mean?" "She just thinks maybe you come on a little strong. You ask a lot of questions. Bring up stuff that makes people uncomfortable." I stood there frozen in my kitchen, the laundry basket still on the floor. Uncomfortable. That's the word he used. That I make people uncomfortable. Me, his mom, the woman who raised him after his dad passed. The one who stayed up with him through every fever, every broken heart, every late night breakdown in college. "Isabel thinks this will help everyone have a calmer holiday," he added, like it was some kind of final offer. I looked out the window at my small front yard, now bare and gray from the December cold. Just last week, I was picking out wrapping paper and little stocking stuffers for the grandkids. "Okay," I said, somehow managing to keep my voice steady. "So, I'm not invited." "That's not what I'm saying," he mumbled. "It's just, maybe this year, we do things differently. We'll see you after. Maybe New Year's." New Year's, like Christmas was some optional appointment that could be rescheduled when it was more convenient for them. "I see," I said softly. Ethan sighed. "Mom, don't take it the wrong way. You know I love you. It's just easier. This way, easier." That word did something to me. It sliced me open in a quiet, cruel way. They didn't even want me there, not because I did something wrong, but because I wasn't easy. I didn't fit into the picture-perfect holiday she wanted. Too loud, too real, too much. "I should go," I said, barely recognizing my own voice. "Dinner's on the stove," he said. "Okay, like this wasn't a big deal." "Love you, Mom." I didn't say it back. I just hung up, and I stood in my kitchen for a long time. The silence hit harder than the phone call. No music, no TV. Just the ticking of the old clock above my fridge and the low hum of the heater kicking on. This house used to be full of life. Now, it was just mine. Too quiet, too cold. I walked over to the fridge and took down the note I'd made last week. "Get extra marshmallows for the kids' cocoa." I crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash. They wouldn't be coming. I wouldn't be cooking. I wasn't even wanted. And the worst part? This wasn't sudden. This had been building for years. Little comments from Isabel. "You're spoiling them with too many gifts." "Maybe don't talk about Ethan's dad so much, it's depressing." "We're doing the Santa thing different this year. Hope you understand." I swallowed those jabs. I kept showing up with a smile and a pie in hand. I bit my tongue when they made me feel like a guest instead of family. But this was the line. I'd just been erased from Christmas. No fight, no yelling, just cut off like a loose thread. Because I made things tense, I sat down at the kitchen table, the one Ethan used to do his homework on, where I once carved little turkeys out of apples for his 3rd grade party. I looked around at the photos on my wall. Ethan in his graduation cap, Ethan holding his firstborn, Ethan and Isabel at their wedding, beaming. I was in all of them, but I suddenly realized something chilling. In their life now, I was just a background character, easy to crop out. I sat there until the sky outside turned navy blue, until the heater shut off and the house went silent again. And then, without thinking, I whispered out loud, "If I make things so uncomfortable, maybe it's time I stop making things so comfortable for them." They uninvited me from Christmas, so I gave them a gift they'll never forget. If you've ever been treated like a burden by your own family, hit subscribe because you're not alone. And trust me, this story's just getting started. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got into bed early, but the silence was louder than usual. I kept hearing Ethan's voice in my head. We're keeping it small this year. Isabel thinks you make things tense. Try not to take it personally. It was personal. How could it not be? At 2:17 a.m., I gave up trying. I got out of bed and padded down the hallway in my slippers, the floorboards creaking like they were sighing with me. I opened the old hallway closet and pulled out a box I hadn't touched in years. It was labeled Family Holidays. I sat on the living room floor, the only light coming from the lamp by the window. The house was cold, but I didn't notice. I was too busy pulling out memories, photos. So many of them. Ethan at age 10, holding a crooked paper turkey he made in school. Me, laughing in the kitchen, apron covered in flour. Isabel holding baby Miles, while I stood next to her with my hand on her back, smiling proudly like she was my own daughter. That was the first year they let me host Christmas after Mark died. It had felt like hope, like maybe, even though I lost my husband, I hadn't lost family, but somewhere along the way, the smiles got smaller, the hugs shorter, and I started to disappear from the pictures, literally. The last printed photo I found of a Christmas gathering at their house, I wasn't even in it. Everyone else was there. Isabel's parents, her brother and sister-in-law, even her college friend from Michigan. But not me. I checked the back. It said, Christmas 2021, the whole gang. Whole gang? Guess not. I stood up and walked over to the mantel. One frame still had a photo of me holding both the grandkids in my lap while Ethan carved the turkey. I stared at it for a long time. Then I picked it up and turned it face down. It hurt. God, it hurt. Not just being excluded, but being erased. Not in a loud, dramatic way. In the quiet, sneaky way. The kind where they smile to your face, but slowly stop seeing you at all. I sat back down on the couch and pulled a blanket over my shoulders. And for the first time in a long, long time, I cried. I cried for everything I'd given and everything I'd let slide. I cried for the hundreds of nights I babysat while Isabel needed a break, for the checks I wrote when Ethan lost his job, for the times I left early so I wouldn't interfere with their schedule, for the way my grandkids called me Grandma Linda, while Isabel's parents were just Nana and Pop, for how many times I made myself smaller, and it still wasn't enough. The worst part? They didn't even think they'd done something wrong. To them, I was just extra, too much emotion, too many questions, too motherly, too me. And I finally realized maybe it wasn't just Isabel. Maybe Ethan let this happen. Maybe he chose this. He chose silence over standing up for me, chose comfort over kindness, chose his wife's peace over his mother's presence. And now, he'd chosen Christmas without me. Around a.m., I stood up and started making coffee. The sky outside was just starting to turn pale gray, and the wind had picked up. I didn't bother turning on the tree this morning. What was the point? Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up my online banking. And that's when something clicked. There, sitting in my monthly scheduled payments, were dozens of little quiet sacrifices I'd forgotten I was still making. Ethan's phone line, their Netflix account, the Costco membership, all in my name, all coming out of my account, all done out of love, and never once questioned. I stared at those payments like they were little receipts of my invisibility. They didn't want me at their table this Christmas? Fine. Then maybe it was time to stop feeding the people who threw me out. I wasn't in the picture anymore, but they were still living off the frame I paid for. The next morning, I woke up angry. Not screaming, flipping tables kind of angry. No, the quiet kind, the dangerous kind. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat down at the kitchen table, and opened my laptop. There was one tab I hadn't opened in months, my bank account, and there it was, right at the top. Costco 763.89, charged just 2 days ago. I blinked. That was my card, the account I opened, the membership I paid for, and they were still using it. After uninviting me from Christmas, after saying I made their holidays tense, they were filling their cart with shrimp trays, wine, holiday wreaths, and whatever else made Isabel's parties look perfect. While I was sitting here eating toast with generic brand jam, I clicked into the statement, and I swear, I started laughing. Not the funny kind of laugh, the I can't believe I've been this stupid kind. There were diapers for the baby, a holiday ham, even a giant inflatable snowman, for a party I wasn't even allowed to attend. I scrolled down further. Amazon Prime $14.99, still under my name. Netflix 15 point for $9. Yep, still me. Spotify family plan $16.99. Guess who was paying for everyone to listen to holiday music? And then, at Mobile $186.72. 3 lines, Ethan, Isabel, and the tablet for their oldest, all bundled together. On my account, I sat there with my coffee turning cold and my heart pounding out of my chest. I hadn't just been cut out of the picture. I'd been left behind to keep paying for the frame. All these quiet little wires, stretching from my life into theirs. All these years of "it's just temporary, Mom. Can you cover this, Mom? We'll switch it to our name soon, Mom." But they never did. Because I never made them. Because I wanted to feel needed. Because I thought being generous would keep me close. Because I thought they'd remember. They did in single quotes t.so. I opened a new tab. Costco's website. 2 clicks. Later, I was in my account. Under members, I saw Isabel's name listed as an authorized household user. She even had her own photo ID card attached. I hovered over the little trash icon. My finger trembled, and then I clicked it. Deleted. Next, Amazon Prime. I changed the password, logged out all devices, removed every address except mine. Netflix? Same thing. Logged them out mid-movie, probably. Good. Spotify? I switched to a single user plan. Just me. Just how it's gonna be from now on. And that phone plan. I couldn't cancel it right away, but I sent a text to Ethan and Isabel. This is your 30-day notice. Starting next month, your phone lines will be disconnected. Please open your own plan. Love. The woman who apparently makes everyone uncomfortable. I stared at the message before hitting send. Then I hit send anyway. I didn't get a reply. Not a single word. No, thank you for covering it this long. No, we understand. Nothing. But I did get satisfaction. A deep, warm kind of satisfaction. The kind you feel when the silence says more than an apology ever could. Later that evening, I made myself a proper dinner. Nothing frozen. Nothing from a box. I cooked for one and made it beautiful. Roasted chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes with butter. The works. And I lit a candle at the table. Not because anyone was coming, but because I deserved it. I used the nice plate, the one I saved for company. Funny thing is, turns out, I am company worth showing up for. It had been 5 days since the phone call that changed everything. 5 days since Ethan told me I wasn't welcome at Christmas. 5 days since I canceled the Costco card, locked them out of my Amazon account, and set a countdown on their phone plan. And in all that time, not one word. No call, no text, no apology. Just silence. You know, I always thought if I ever stopped doing everything for them, someone would notice. That the moment I stepped back, they'd realize how much I was holding together. But all I got was silence. That kind of silence isn't quiet. It's loud, it echoes, and it makes you ask a dangerous question. Was I only loved when I was useful? I'd spent years making it easy for them, saying yes, biting my tongue, showing up with gifts and groceries and smiles, and when I stopped, I vanished. So I started vanishing more. I pulled down the holiday decorations from the attic not to hang them, but to box them up for donation. The garland I used to wrap around the staircase when the grandkids came over, gone. The blinking reindeer lights Ethan always helped me hang on the roof, still tangled in their old plastic tub, but I set it by the front door for pickup. No one was coming. Why pretend? But as I was packing away the little ceramic nativity scene I bought the year after Mark died, I caught my reflection in the glass of the cabinet, and I didn't recognize myself. Not because I looked older, not because of the tired eyes or the gray streaks in my hair, but because I looked small, like someone who had quietly faded into the background of her own life. I sat down on the edge of the couch and whispered, when did I stop existing unless someone needed something? The mail came that afternoon, a thick envelope from the family dentist, Ethan's name on it, but my address. Another bill he never changed. Another thing they expected me to handle. I snapped. I grabbed my phone, took a picture of it, and texted Ethan, your dental bill came here again. Might want to update your address, since you've updated your priorities. Still, no reply. Later that night, I went to the fridge to grab something for dinner and saw a note I'd written to myself weeks ago. Buy gingerbread kits for the kids. I stood there staring at it, like it belonged to someone else. Someone who was still trying. Someone who still believed. I peeled the note off the fridge and held it in my hands for a long time before crumpling it up and throwing it away. It felt like deleting a dream. I didn't cry that night. I just sat with it. The absence, the silence, the truth. And here's what hit me hardest. They didn't even ask if I was okay. Not once. I could have been sick, lonely, grieving, and not one person checked in. Not Ethan, not Isabel, not even the kids. And that's when I realized something. I'd been so worried about being excluded that I hadn't stopped to ask if these people were worth being included with in the first place. You know what they say? People don't notice what you do until you stop doing it. Well, I stopped, and they still didn't notice, which told me everything I needed to know. The next morning, I made a list. Not a grocery list, not a Christmas list, a freedom list. Cancel shared Spotify, remove joint credit card, unlink the whole autopay, stop babysitting, favors, call lawyer. About how steed that last one. That was the moment I felt my heartbeat change, because suddenly this wasn't just about being hurt. It was about taking my power back. Not with drama, not with screaming, but with quiet, steady decisions. I wasn't going to fight for a seat at a table that was already set without me. Let them toast their wine. Let them pass the ham. Let them have their picture-perfect Christmas. They'll never even notice I'm gone. Until the foundation under their feet starts to shift. Until the blessings they took for granted stop arriving like clockwork. And by the time they do, I'll already be long gone. It started with a phone call I didn't answer. Then a voicemail I didn't check. And then a Facebook post. That's how I found out what Isabel had been saying about me. It was my neighbor Sheila who first brought it to my attention. She called while I was sipping my morning coffee, the one I'd finally started brewing exactly how I liked it, extra strong, splash of cream, no one else's opinion. You might want to look at Isabel's Facebook, she said. I think she's talking about you. I didn't even hesitate. I opened my laptop, logged in, and there it was. Posted just 12 hours earlier, under a photo of her perfectly decorated dining room. This year, we're celebrating Christmas with just the people who bring peace into our home. No tension, no drama, no guilt. Just love, grace, and chosen family. Sometimes boundaries are the best gifts you can give. Hundreds of likes, comments from her yoga friends and wine club ladies. So proud of you for protecting your peace. You don't owe anyone access to your life, especially if they're toxic. Real family is who you choose. Toxic. That's what she called me, just without using my name. She didn't need to. Everybody knew. The timing, the message, the guest list. I was the drama. I was the tension. I was the one she so bravely excluded in the name of peace. It was like watching someone rewrite your obituary while you're still alive. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, not crying, not even mad, just stunned. She had cut me out of Christmas, and somehow still made herself the victim. I didn't reply, not publicly, not yet, but a storm started brewing in my chest. I clicked on Ethan's profile. He hadn't posted anything, but he liked the post. That told me everything. I closed the laptop. I sat in silence, and I let the grief finish turning into fire. 2 days later, I got another surprise, a Venmo request from Ethan. $384.77. Label, Christmas grocery split. I stared at the screen like it had personally insulted me. They didn't want me at the table, but they still expected me to pay for it. I took a deep breath, typed in 3.8 for dollars, hit send, and added a note. Didn't eat. Don't pay. I waited. No response. So I kept going. I canceled the shared Spotify account. Removed myself from the whole autopay link to their address. Unlinked my credit card from Ethan's Amazon profile. And the phone plan? Final notice sent. Not out of pettiness. Not out of revenge. Out of self-respect. For the first time in years. I wasn't going to be the invisible worker bee behind their picture-perfect holidays. Let Isabel light her vanilla-scented candles. Let Ethan carve his turkey. Let them play happy family for their carefully curated audience, because the woman who cleaned, cooked, funded, and smiled through it all was finally done. A few nights later, the phone rang again. It was a local number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to check it. It was Isabel. Her voice was soft, fake sweet, the way it always got when she wanted something. Hi, Linda. I'm just checking in. I noticed you've been making a lot of changes to the accounts and, well, I just hope everything's okay. I think there's been a big misunderstanding and I'd love to clear the air, woman to woman. It's the holidays, after all. No hard feelings, right? Call me. I didn't call. Instead, I took out a notebook and wrote down every account I'd ever shared with them, because now I knew exactly what this was. They weren't sorry, they were scared. Not scared of me, scared of losing the convenience I'd provided. I wasn't the family member they loved. I was the infrastructure, and now that I was cutting the power, they were scrambling to find a flashlight. 2 days before Christmas, I got a text from Ethan. Hey, can we talk? Short, no apology, no acknowledgement, just, can we talk? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I set my phone down. Not yet, let them sit in it. Let them feel the absence of everything they once expected without question. I had given them years of effort, years of love, years of money, and they had reduced me to an inconvenience, a tension, a problem to be solved. Well, guess what? Problem solved. That night, as I watched an old Christmas movie on TV, my phone buzzed again. A message from my cousin Diane, who lives 2 towns over. Hey, just saw Isabel's post. She's talking about you, right? I'm so sorry, Linda. You didn't deserve that. I just replied, thanks. I know. Because I did know. I finally knew the truth. I wasn't hard to love. I wasn't too emotional. I wasn't toxic. I was just someone they couldn't control anymore. And instead of admitting that, they rewrote the story. But that's the thing about stories. You can only lie for so long before the truth starts showing up in the cracks. And I was done playing the villain in their fiction. She told the world I was chaos, but she forgot I was also the one holding everything together. The next morning, I woke up with a strange kind of peace, not because anything had been fixed, but because I'd finally stopped trying to fix it. The apology I used to daydream about wasn't coming. The sudden realization Ethan would have in the middle of the night, where he'd call crying and say, I'm so sorry, Mom. That wasn't coming either. But something else was. And I didn't even realize it. Until I opened the drawer in my hallway. I was looking for packing tape donating more holiday decorations, but I found something I hadn't touched in years, a folder. Worn edges. Yellow post-it stuck to the front. It said, House papers Ethan Isabel. My stomach turned. I sat on the edge of my bed and opened it. Inside were documents I had half forgotten about. A cashier's check receipt for $32,000. A copy of the deed, the mortgage paperwork, my signature, Ethan's signature, and nowhere was Isabel's name, just mine, because when Ethan and Isabel bought their house 6 years ago, they couldn't qualify a loan. He had just been laid off. She was still between jobs. I remember that meeting at the bank, how the loan officer glanced at them, then looked at me and said gently, we'd need a co-signer to approve this, and without even thinking, I said, put me on it. Back then, it felt like love. Now it felt like leverage. I ran my fingers along the edge of the deed, typed in the address online, pulled up the property record, and there it was, Linda Marie Walker, co-owner. I was still legally tied to that house, the one I wasn't welcome in, the one I wasn't comfortable enough to be invited to, the one where my casserole was too old-fashioned, my voice too emotional, my presence too much. But my money? Apparently, that wasn't too much. I stared at the screen, then down at the paperwork again. And slowly, something inside me started to shift. Not bitterness, not rage, just clarity. They thought they'd shut the door on me, but they'd forgotten I helped build the doorframe. That afternoon, I scheduled an appointment with a real estate lawyer. Her name was Sarah. She wore a navy blazer and sharp glasses and didn't flinch when I said, I want to know exactly what my legal options are. If I co-own a house that I'm no longer allowed inside. She blinked once, then said, let's talk. I handed her the folder. She flipped through it quietly, nodding. After a few minutes, she said, you're listed as a co-owner. Your name's on the deed, which means technically, you have equal rights to the property. You could request a sale, a buyout, or if they refuse, file a partition action to force it through the court. I blinked. What? A partition? Basically, if 2 co-owners can't agree on what to do with a shared property, the court steps in. You can legally force them to either buy out your half, or sell the entire house and split the money. I sat back in my chair, a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for years escaped my lungs. She looked at me carefully. Is that what you want? I didn't answer right away, because it wasn't about wanting revenge. It was about finally telling the truth, with paperwork, with law, with quiet power. So I said, I want them to feel what I've felt like everything they depended on could be taken away, not out of hate, out of balance. Sarah nodded slowly. I can prepare the letter. 2 days later, I dropped the envelope into their mailbox myself. Isabel's SUV was in the driveway. There was a big red ribbon across a giant inflatable Santa. White lights lined the roof in perfect Pinterest-worthy rows. I didn't linger. I just slid the certified envelope into the box and walked away. Inside it was a letter from my lawyer offering Ethan the option to buy out my share of the house within 45 days, or I'd move forward with the partition and force a public sale. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. It was legal. It was clean. And it was mine. They didn't call for 3 days, and when Ethan finally did, it was at 7:40 p.m. on a Sunday night. I was halfway through an episode of Jeopardy! I didn't answer. His voicemail was short. Mom, got your letter. What the hell are you doing? Call me, please. I still didn't call, because this wasn't a conversation anymore. This was a reckoning. The next morning, I got a text from Isabel. Wow, way to ruin Christmas. Just because you're bitter doesn't mean you need to blow up our lives. We've given you so much grace. Grace? They disinvited me from my own family, made me a social ghost, lied about me on social media, and I was the one blowing things up. I didn't reply. I just forwarded the text to my lawyer. She added it to the file, and I made a quiet promise to myself. I wouldn't shout. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't explain. I would simply proceed. That night, I opened a fresh bottle of red wine, the good kind I never used to buy because I was saving money for the kids. I put on music, real music, the kind that fills a house with soul, and I toasted myself, not because I'd won, not yet, but because for the first time in years I wasn't afraid of their disappointment. They didn't want me to act like family? Fine. I'd act like a business partner instead. They built a home on guilt and control, but forgot I helped pour the foundation. Christmas Eve, the holiday I used to plan for months in advance, where I'd wake up at a.m., roll out pie crust from scratch, tie matching bows to every grandchild's gift, and make sure the house smelled like cinnamon and safety. But not this year. This year, I slept in. This year, I woke up to silence and didn't fill it with effort. Instead, I lit a candle, made a perfect omelet for one, and put on my favorite cozy sweater, the one Isabel once called a little too loud for dinner. Good. I hoped it screamed now. By noon, I'd finished writing my last 2 Christmas cards. One was for my church friend June. The other was for my lawyer. Inside, I included a photocopy of the deed, my payment receipts from the past 5 years, and a short note. They took the table from me. I'm just reclaiming my seat. At 3:30 p.m., I drove across town, parking across the street from Ethan and Isabel's house. It looked like a Christmas postcard. The lawn decorations, the smell of roasted ham sneaking out the windows, the SUVs in the driveway, lined up like VIP arrivals. I could even hear laughter from inside. Isabel's bright, performative laugh. That one she uses when people are watching. They were celebrating in the house I co-owned, the house my retirement money helped buy, the house I was erased from. I didn't walk up to the door, didn't bang, didn't scream, didn't make a scene. I simply stepped up to the mailbox and slid in a red envelope, handwritten in cursive, Merry Christmas. Inside, an official notice of intent to partition and sell. It was quiet, it was legal, and it was timed perfectly. Later that night, I got a text from Isabel. No greeting, no Merry Christmas, just, WHAT is this? I didn't reply. I'd already said everything I needed to with paperwork, but oh, how I imagined the scene. Her opening the envelope, expecting maybe a soft apology or last-minute olive branch, and instead, finding a legal threat to her perfect little kingdom. I pictured her frozen, one hand still on the casserole dish, guests staring as her smile cracked, the room spinning, her thought unraveling. Ethan probably read it in silence, or maybe he tried to pretend it wasn't real. That's what he always did, minimize, ignore, delay. But not this time, because this time, the deadline was in writing, 45 days to buy me out, or the house goes on the market. I poured myself a glass of wine, curled up on the couch with a fleece blanket, and turned on It's a Wonderful Life. I didn't cry, not once, because this year, I wasn't the sad mother baking alone in the kitchen. I wasn't the forgotten grandma waiting for an invite that never came. I was the woman who finally flipped the script. You know what people don't talk about enough? What it feels like when you stop begging for basic decency and start demanding respect, quietly, cleanly, without asking permission. The world doesn't know how to handle that version of you, and apparently, neither did Isabel, because by midnight, she posted again on Facebook. Another carefully worded masterpiece, just a reminder to protect your peace even if it means walking away from toxic family members. Holidays are sacred. Don't let people who thrive on chaos ruin them for you. No names. But again, everybody knew. Except this time. The likes were fewer. The comments weren't as glowing, and one of them stood out. Didn't your mother-in-law help buy your house? Thought I read something about that. I smiled. The cracks were showing. The next morning, I got a voicemail from Ethan. Mom, can we please just talk? You've made your point. I don't know what you want from us. What I wanted? I wanted him to remember the Christmas I pawned my wedding ring to buy his first guitar. I wanted him to remember the night I stayed up sewing his pageant costume after Isabel forgot. I wanted him to say, I'm sorry I let her erase you. But he didn't say that, because even now, he didn't understand. So I didn't call back. I just went for a walk around the block, snow crunching under my boots. The sun was out, the air was sharp and bright, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a ghost. They wrote me out of their holiday like I was the problem, so I gave them a Christmas memory they'll never forget. Fallout doesn't always come with fire and ash. Sometimes it comes in the form of silence, followed by panic. 2 days after Christmas, my phone rang 6 times before noon. I didn't answer any of them. Ethan, Isabel, a blocked number I could only assume was her mother or some cousin I barely knew. Each one went straight to voicemail. I didn't listen to a single message, because I already knew what they were going to say. They weren't calling to apologize. They were calling to control the narrative. Too late for that. That afternoon, I got a call from my friend Sharon at church. She lowered her voice like she was about to tell me someone had died. Linda, sweetie, I just wanted to check on you. I heard from Margot that Isabel's parents are saying some awful things around town. I paused. Like what? She hesitated, then said, that you're unstable, that you're trying to ruin their family, that you made a scene on Christmas Eve and threatened them in front of guests. I actually laughed out loud. I hadn't even stepped into their house. I hadn't said a single word to anyone. But now I was the unstable, bitter mother-in-law waging war on her perfect, innocent daughter-in-law. Please, let them talk. Let them scramble, because the one thing I had on my side now was proof. That night, I sat at my dining room table with a notebook and a laptop. I opened every folder I had. Text messages, screenshots, receipts, bank transfers, photos of Christmas gifts I paid for but never got thanked for, HOA statements with my name but their address, emails from the school district listing me as emergency contact because they didn't want to be bothered at work, every quiet favor, every just this once mom, every invisible burden they passed to me without hesitation. I printed everything, organized it, labeled it, then I scanned it all into a cloud folder and locked it behind a password. I wasn't playing defense anymore. 3 days later, the real blow came. My phone buzzed. An email from Sarah, my lawyer. Subject line, response from Ethan's attorney, urgent. I opened it. Apparently they'd hired a lawyer. The letter was 3 pages long and full of ridiculous phrases like disruption of household stability, intentional infliction of emotional distress, refusal to act in good faith regarding co-owned property. But my favorite part, our clients request you cease and desist all communication and actions relating to the home until a mutual agreement is reached. In other words, they were panicking. They thought they could scare me into backing down. They thought the threat of lawyers would send me running. They really didn't know me at all. I called Sarah immediately. She sighed and said, "This is typical. They're trying to delay the clock." I said, "Then let's hit fast forward." She replied with a smile in her voice, "Copy that." The next day, I received something even better than a letter. It was a call from someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Jess, my niece. She was married to Ethan's cousin, and we used to be close until she stopped replying to my messages about a year ago. Now suddenly, she was calling me. I let it go to voicemail. She called back 5 minutes later. This time I answered. "Linda," she said, her voice low. "I just saw Isabel's post from last week, and I wanted to say I'm sorry." I blinked. Sorry for what? For believing her. That caught me off guard. Jess sighed. "She told everyone you'd had some kind of breakdown, that you were obsessed with control, that you were trying to ruin their marriage. But now I'm hearing there's a house. A deed. That your name is on it?" "My name is on everything," I said calmly. "They just assumed I'd never use it." There was silence on the other end. Then, I believe you now. And I think a lot of other people are starting to too. Turns out, word travels fast in suburban circles. Especially when the truth slips through cracks in perfect Instagram filters. Someone posted on a local moms group about co-signing with in-laws gone wrong. The comments section exploded. Isabel's name got mentioned. So did Ethan's single quotes s.by. New Year's Eve, I had 3 different people forward me a screenshot of her Facebook account being deleted entirely. One text from Sharon said simply, "Well, that escalated." But none of that compared to what happened next, because a few days later, I received a letter, not from their lawyer, not from the HOA, not from Isabel's passive-aggressive group chats, from the bank.it was a formal notice of delinquency. 3 months of missed mortgage payments. Total owed, 8, for to 1, 38. If the account wasn't brought current in 14 days, foreclosure proceedings would begin. I sat there staring at the page, my hands steady, my face calm. This wasn't some petty victory. This was what happens when you build your life on top of someone you've burned. They wanted me invisible? Well now, so were my payments. Ethan called again that night. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was strained, tight, desperate. "Mom, I don't know what to do. We can't cover the mortgage without your help. Isabel's parents won't step in. We didn't think this would go this far. Can you please just call me?" I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on my front porch, listened to the wind chimes, and smiled. Because this wasn't revenge. This was accountability. They thought I'd never walk away, until they looked around and realized I was the one holding up the roof. I used to believe that silence meant dignity, that if I just kept my head down, stayed quiet, and didn't stir the pot, people would respect me. I thought maturity was swallowing pain in private while others toasted their fake perfection in public. But you know what I've learned? Silence only protects the wrong people. Because once I stopped being silent, other people started talking. It started in small ways. A nod from the cashier at the corner market. A long glance from Isabel's hairdresser when I passed her in the pharmacy aisle. Whispers when I walked into Sunday service at church. And then, one Sunday morning, I got an unexpected text from Sharon. "Linda, people are talking. You might want to come to coffee after service today." I almost didn't go, but something in me, curiosity maybe, pushed me forward. I wore my dark green wool coat, the one with gold buttons Isabel once said looked too much like a tablecloth. Good. Let it match the table I was finally reclaiming. The church coffee circle wasn't exactly a safe place. It was where gossip dressed itself up as concern, but this time, it felt different. June handed me a cup of tea and leaned in gently. "We didn't know about the house, about the payments, about everything you did for them." I blinked. She continued, her voice kind but firm. "Isabel made it sound like you were trying to destroy her marriage. But when the mortgage notice leaked, people started asking questions." I sipped my tea slowly. "What kind of questions?" She gave me a knowing look, the kind that get whispered in preschool parking lots and PTA meetings. Apparently, the other moms had noticed Isabel's sudden meltdown on social media, followed by her account vanishing, followed by Ethan showing up late to school pickup looking pale and distracted. Then someone in the hole let it slip that a foreclosure letter had been posted to the house, and just like that the narrative started shifting. Suddenly, I wasn't the overbearing, unstable mother-in-law who just couldn't let go. I was the woman who'd signed for their loan, who'd paid their bills, who'd been cut off and replaced like a battery. And people talked. A few days later, I ran into Mary from the book club at the grocery store. She walked straight up to me, looked me in the eye, and said, "I wish I had done what you did. My son's wife has been erasing me for years, but I was too afraid to speak up. You did the brave thing." I didn't know what to say. So I just nodded, and as I turned away, she added softly, "We're watching. And honestly, we're rooting for you." The most surprising message came that night, from an account I didn't recognize at first, just a random name and no profile picture. But when I opened it, my breath caught. "Hi Linda. I know we haven't spoken in a long time. I'm Jess. I don't know if you heard, but we divorced last year. And looking back, I think I just wanted to say, I saw how Isabel treated you, and I believed her. I'm sorry. I just want you to know you're not crazy, and you weren't wrong. You were just too kind to fight back. But now that you are, I think it's the strongest thing I've seen in years." I stared at the screen, stunned. Jess had Been on Team Isabel from the beginning, liked all her posts, shared her toxic in-law memes, ignored me at family dinners. And now, she was reaching out, because the truth has a funny way of surfacing, especially when the lies get heavy enough to sink. It didn't stop there. The next Sunday, the church bulletin had a prayer request from Ethan and Isabel, but this time, it didn't mention me at all. No shade, no comments, just quiet omission. They were going dark, going silent, because now they knew eyes were on them, and the louder they screamed victim, the more people started connecting the dots. One afternoon, I got a call from the school office. I almost didn't pick up, but when I answered, it was the secretary, warm and polite. "Hi, Mrs. Walker. I just wanted to confirm, are you still okay to be the emergency contact for Ellie and Jake?" I was stunned. I hadn't heard their names spoken to me in months. I cleared my throat. Yes, I am," she continued. "Great. Just wanted to double check, since things seem a bit unsettled over there lately." Unsettled, that's one word for it. I hung up and sat still for a long moment. They were unraveling. Not because I exposed them publicly, but because I stopped protecting them privately. Letting people know the truth wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about liberation. I'd carried their secrets for years, covered for their absence, laughed off their jabs, let them take and take and take, because I thought that's what love looked like. But now, love looked like boundaries. Love looked like truth. Love looked like finally letting people see me clearly without the filter of their edits. They used to whisper about me behind my back. Now they're whispering about what they did instead. It's strange how endings don't always feel like endings. Sometimes, they feel like freedom, and sometimes, they feel like wrapping paper being torn open in slow motion, each layer revealing the truth someone thought they'd hidden forever. This story began with Christmas, so it's only fitting it ends with a gift they'll never forget. It started with a letter from the bank. Final notice. If the past due amount wasn't paid in full by the end of the month, foreclosure proceedings would begin. They had 12 days. I didn't say a word to Ethan, didn't respond to his messages, didn't acknowledge the guilt-laced voicemails where he begged me to just talk things through like a family. But I heard the panic in his voice. I imagined him pacing their perfect white kitchen, phone clutched tight in his palm, while Isabel scrolled Zillow in a panic, realizing her dream home might be auctioned off to the highest bidder. I didn't want them homeless, but I also didn't want them comfortable. So, I made a decision. I called Sarah, my lawyer. "I want to sell my share. I want out. Let's file the paperwork." She paused. "You sure? You're holding the upper hand. You could renegotiate everything, even reclaim your space in that house." I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. "I don't want a seat at that table anymore. I want my own table, and I want it paid for with their regret." That same week, the listing agent arrived, a tall, kind woman named Lauren with sharp eyes and an even sharper memory. She walked through the house with a clipboard and professional calm. Isabel greeted her at the door like everything was normal, like she hadn't spent months pretending I didn't exist. But I noticed her hands were shaking. Lauren toured the property, making polite notes. She complimented the lighting, the finishes, the curb appeal. Then she asked, "Who contributed the down payment?" Isabel blinked. "Oh, that was Ethan's mother, but she doesn't live here anymore." Lauren smiled. "I know. She hired me. I didn't go to the open house, but I heard about it." Isabel tried to act like she was just helping sell a family property. Ethan stayed quiet the whole time, giving potential buyers that hollow-eyed nod you see in courtroom documentaries. People walked through the living room where I used to hang stockings, opened closets where I once tucked away birthday gifts for the grandkids, stood in the kitchen I helped renovate, yes, the one with the quartz countertops I paid for when their credit cards were maxed out. They wanted me gone? Fine. Now so was the house. 3 days after the open house, an offer came in, full price, no contingencies, closing into weeks. I accepted it without blinking. Ethan tried to call me again, but I was done with late-night apologies and quiet desperation. I was done being the backup plan. Instead, I mailed him something, a box. Inside was a photo frame, a picture of me, Ethan, and the kids from the last Christmas we spent together, smiling, laughing. The kids holding cookies we baked from my mother's recipe. Taped to the back, the check I received for my half of the house. $21600.no note. No explanation. Just the cost of forgetting the woman who helped build your life until you pushed her out like clutter from the attic. I didn't expect a response, but 3 days later, I got an envelope. No return address. Inside, a letter. Handwritten. Shaky.it was Ethan. Mom, I don't know what to say. I thought I was being a good husband by putting Isabel first. I thought I was protecting peace, but I realize now I was just choosing convenience over courage. You didn't deserve what we did, and I see now how easy it was for us to erase you. Because you made things look so easy, you were the glue, and when you left, everything cracked. We lost the house. Isabel's parents pulled back. Our community pulled away. Even the kids are asking where you went. I know you probably hate me. I don't blame you. But if you ever want to see the kids again, I promise I'll stay out of the way. Ethani held the letter for a long time, not because it made things better, but because it confirmed what I already knew. Sometimes, people only learn what you're worth when they have to live without it, and sometimes, the greatest gift you can give someone is the silence that follows your exit. I didn't rush to reply, didn't rush to forgive, but a week later, I dropped off a box at the school. Inside, 2 sets of winter gloves, a handmade scarf I'd been knitting since fall, a tin of sugar cookies, half chocolate chip, half peppermint swirl. No card, just a post-it note. For Ellie and Jake. Grandma still thinks of you. The school nurse told me the kids cried when they opened it, that Ellie wore the scarf every day for the rest of the semester, that Jake asked if he could call me to say thank you. I didn't answer right away, but I did send another box the next week, and the next. I never sent anything to Ethan or Isabel again. My love wasn't a gift for them anymore. It was for the people who didn't uninvite me from their hearts. This Christmas, I spent the holiday somewhere new, a cabin in upstate New York, snow-covered porch, crackling fireplace, no tension, no fake smiles, no cold casseroles served with warmer lies, just me, a mug of cocoa, and a quiet I finally knew how to enjoy. And taped to my window, a card from Ellie, her handwriting wobbly but proud. Merry Christmas. Grandma, I love you. Next year, will you come to my house? Ellie, they said I made the holidays uncomfortable, so I gave them a Christmas they'll remember for the rest of their lives.